I guess you could say I was always an artist and I just didn't know it, but I wasn't conscious of my artistic desires until I actually came to LA. I was a computer programmer, so I was someone who wanted to do the best he could in his academic space to create the most commerce so I could support my family and pull them out of the ghetto, so to speak. And it wasn't until I went to a convention with a friend, someone asked me if I was involved. I was not. And they asked me to read a monologue. I read it, and they said, you should move to LA. The funny thing, the irony is that this was 2003, and they said, I remember this person who ended up being my acting coach saying that there's a diversity issue in Hollywood. This was in 2003. And they said, you have a great look, I have an acting class, you should come and you should try it out. And 7 days later, I was on the 40 to the 10 to Los Angeles. So, it was late in my life that I realized that art was something I could use for the purpose of getting my message out into the world. I think, being a person of color in this business is an advantage because I never can move far away from my responsibility. I always say I don't have the luxury of being a fatalist. I don't have the luxury of being apathetic because I have children. My children are children of color, and they're coming up in the same world that I've come up in. And so I can never separate myself from the end game of changing it in a way that they can move throughout the course of their lives in a way that's productive, in a way that they don't have the same iniquities that I've had to deal with. As long as there is disparity that we see or feel, as long as there is oppression and I'm on the side of the oppressed, I'll fight for the justices I want to see happening in the world. So whether it be acting or directing or producing or writing or whatever, I think all those things are just tools in the tool belt to get the job done, so to speak. So I don't really isolate one over the other. I kind of just ask myself if I want to get to point B, what are all the things that I need to do along the way, and sometimes it's saying, okay, how do I make this script better, or how do I turn this book into a script? Or I get a script and I'm saying, okay, well, how can I tell this story in a way that has an impact that affects people? Before a writer, before an actor, before a producer, before a director, I'd want to be called an activist, someone that had a very specific opinion and agenda when it came to social change, and then someone that used those other titles as tools to get there. Acting, directing, writing, all those things, in my opinion, are tools in a tool belt. But the person I am, I believe, is rooted in the goals that I have for myself and the things I want to see happen in the world before I go. And that specifically is seeing the elevation and progress of my people. When you look at what is needed in the community, and you stand recognizing there is a disparity when it comes to, with respect to people of color and the disadvantage that we're at in so many ways in this country, and the indifference that so many people have toward the injustices that we endure every day. I don't think I can use my tool for anything other than addressing those issues, whether it be in ways that are nuanced or ways that are direct, whether it be a PSA, like I did on police brutality, or it be a film, like I did with The Birth of a Nation, and creating or not even just creating, but highlighting a hero. I don't think that philanthropy or activism happens on the third Sunday of every month at a YMCA. I think it has to be completely intrinsic. It has to be so part of the fabric of who you are and what you do. And if you're a lawyer, then it has to be in the fabric of your experience. If you're a doctor, a neurosurgeon, if you're an astrophysicist, whatever it is, I think that there has to be something that's woven into who you are that makes your every day a direct challenge toward the injustices that you see your people endure. And that is my approach. It's my approach as a director or writer. Does that mean every single film people are going to be singing slave spirituals in the background? No. It just means that I will always be conscious in every decision I make that what I do is a part of a legacy that people will pay attention to, whether I like it or not. I think all of us, whether in the arts, are leaders. We're leading people somewhere. We're leading young people somewhere, whether we like it or not. There's no middle ground. So we're either leading them towards something that is more progressive and positive and healing, or we're leading them in the other direction. And I think that is the power of art. And that is the one thing that really motivated me when it came to D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation, and choosing that title, and reclaiming that title, and repurposing that title, and tethering Nat Turner to that Birth of a Nation, to D.W. Griffith forever and ever and ever. I felt like he used his power of art literally to change a culture, and to inspire people to embrace white supremacy as a form of self-preservation. And so I'm not only using that title, but I'm using, I think, the power of healing through honest confrontation to bring us back. Knowing what I know now, which isn't very much in the scope of things, if I had to give advice to anyone, I'd say you're never too young to have an opinion and an agenda toward affecting social change. If you ever heard Brother Harry Belafonte speak, he always says when he came into the game, he was 26 and he was an elder. You know, Dr. King was 24, Stokely Carmichael was 19, Fred Hampton was 18. I'm 36, so I'm behind. So when I think about accomplishments, I haven't really done anything yet, but I feel like I'm at least now on the right track. There's this misconception that when you're 18, you don't know enough to do anything worthwhile. I don't think that's the truth. I think that you're at an advantage because you really do have the world before you. And in the sense of urgency, if you can attain at 18, there's so much more you can get done. There's so much, so much you can affect. If Dr. King waited to my age, nothing would have been done because he was he was killed shortly after. Also, that I would just remind young people or anyone that fear, as my grandmother would say, fear isn't from God. That anything worth having will take sacrifice and courage. And people often ask what's the difference between the civil rights movement of old and of new. And I think the difference is today people aren't willing to die, whereas back then people didn't claim their lives as something that had to be sustained forever. They claimed the progression of their people as their platform, and if it meant giving up their life, then so be it. I don't know many people like that. I'm still trying to figure out what that means because I have children, But even when you dissect like Nat Turner gave up his family for his family. I think that is admirable. And the last thing is we need people to recognize their responsibility. Like I said, it's not a charity play to want to see the people that are oppressed do better and the people that are sick be healed. And when I say sick, I mean mostly psychological. The only thing worse than a 17-year-old young man being shot in the street with no gun and with his hands up is the fact that there's an entire world of people that seem to not care. The lack of empathy is to me, it's just as tragic as the event itself. So I think that when we are indifferent, we are passively complicit. And whether you're passively complicit or actively complicit, you are complicit. And I think that people let themselves off the hook because they claim that the problem is too big. But if not us, then who? I don't want my children to look at me and look at someone that was a scientist when it came to money and accumulating it, but was a coward when it came to change and changing the world for them.